So I called my talk the structured revolutionary because I believe that Saturn and Aquarius is ushering in some radical new changes, but there's a lot of order and restraint involved. As far as signs and planets go, you can't get much more opposite than Saturn and Aquarius. If anyone has studied astrology here, you know that Saturn is a planet of structure, of rules, of tradition, what's been established. Oh, I see recording, thank you. And Aquarius is more about radical new changes and rebellion. So we're really feeling the blend of both of these energies right now, and it's kind of just the beginning. So the backstory to what Saturn's been up to is it's been traveling in the same degree of Capricorn as Pluto has all of last year, continuing into this year. Now, this astrology, even if you don't know anything about astrology, I'm going to just kind of break it down into themes. So don't get too caught up on planets and signs if astrology is not your thing. What we're focusing on is the themes. So what Saturn and Pluto traveling together signifies is kind of leadership or systems that have been unsustainable being ready for a major revamp. That's the nutshell. And I think we can agree before this virus hit that it's been intense and people have been wondering, how long can it go on like this? So here comes Saturn and Aquarius starting today. We're getting what is called a sneak preview. Well, I'm calling it that anyway, because Saturn will dip into the first degrees of Aquarius from March 21st to July 1st. And then due to its retrograde cycle, and again, if you don't know astrology, don't worry about that term, but know that Saturn will finish up moving through Capricorn from July 2nd until December 16th. Now, at the end of the year, December 17th, 2020, Saturn will re-enter Aquarius for a longer time period, remaining until March of 2023. So at that time, it will have an important interaction with the planet Jupiter, which will also be entering Aquarius. And I will probably talk a little more about that in part 2 of the talk. But if we're looking at a long timeline, these next few months are sort of a sneak preview of what we might expect on a bigger scale in 2021 to 2023. Now, flipping my notes over. So this coming sneak preview months, it could be adjusting to a new reality, which we are. Aquarius energy brings innovation, adaptability, and the unconventional. So I came up with some theories about what to expect in the coming months based on this astrology. And this is the process a lot of astrologers do, is mix and match the themes of planet plus sign. And then we come up with several possible combinations of the ways it could play out. So unless you are a psychic, which Jan Spiller, my mentor, was, I do not claim that. I'm very intuitive, but a lot of astrologers who are just using the astrology can get a very clear read on what's going on, but they might have to see the most plausible interpretations and form some theories without knowing the exact specifics. I do use my intuition, but when I do this whole process of looking at the themes of the planets and the signs, I come up with best case scenarios and worst case scenarios, and then try to consider, okay, what could happen out of all of that. And another teacher of mine, Emily Trinkus, gave a really good talk on Saturn and Aquarius this morning, and she described expressions of signs as high vibration or low vibration. And I really liked that. That's kind of the equivalent of my best case and worst case that I had worked out. So you can think of it that way too. There's not good or bad signs. They have different expressions. And I think that we can be aware of the energies of these astrological signs and try to bring out the high expression through our own thoughts and actions. So some best case scenarios of Saturn in Aquarius could be some medical advances to save lives, because again, Saturn is systems and structures. Aquarius is innovation and invention. So we do have systems in place. There are people working on either vaccines or other preventative medicine. I do think it's a good time for astrological support of alternative medicine, because Aquarius rules the unconventional. And so even though it's becoming more and more mainstream, things like acupuncture that we in this room may think are quite normal are still considered unconventional in the big picture. So I like the idea of some new energy coming into our existing systems and opening people's minds. Aquarius is also a sign that rules the future. And so what is discovered medically now could help prepare us for a virus outbreak in the future. Our efforts in this time might not be a waste. I like to think of that. Other best case scenarios, thanks for bearing with me. New technologies that can help people work from anywhere, freeing their time, less pollution in the environment because there's less cars on the road. These are some things that can come out through Saturn in Aquarius. Freedom, just when you think of Aquarius as a sign itself, that's a very strong theme. If anyone out there is Aquarius, you're probably some freedom-loving people. So best case scenario under this astrology, freedom from oppressive systems, broken systems. People realizing how much we can do for ourselves. Closer-knit communities, a huge theme of Saturn and Aquarius, or especially the sign of Aquarius, is friendships, communities, working together for the greater good. And Saturn does represent what we're willing to work for, what we're willing to sacrifice for. And so, you know, we're calling it social distancing, but I think people here might agree that we're actually more socially connected perhaps than ever in our lives, and that maybe it's just physical distancing. And that's what I'm considering it. And now let's look at some of the, and again, these are theories based on astrology, and I encourage people to think of the themes of Saturn and Aquarius and then try to put together some of your own ideas. But there are some worst case scenarios that we want to try to prevent. Too much distance, over-reliance on technology at the cost of our humanity. That's a real thing that can go with Saturn in Aquarius. The unpredictable nature of Aquarius. Aquarius is known to be more willing to experiment, which is important, but that can create a sense of instability. We don't know what's going to happen next. And so, you know, financial instability, nothing feels normal. Aquarius isn't known to be associated with anything normal. So, and that's not a bad thing, but again, it can go too much the other way where it just starts feeling too chaotic. Now, you know, I was talking about revolution, Aquarius being the sign of revolution. That can be exciting, that can be necessary. It can also be dangerous. You know, worst case, I thought, well, what if things got violent or really unproductive, and then there's this backlash, like, and it turns into a police state or something. You know, these are worst case scenarios, but these are things that I like to keep in mind so that we can proactively cultivate the best case scenarios. And I even put on my list of worst case for Saturn and Aquarius, robots taking over our jobs. And I kind of was making a joke out of that. Then I thought, well, actually, you know, yeah, there is this whole technology thing, and like thinking sometimes that that's better than a human doing it. And again, like staying connected to our humanity. And these things are possible. They're totally possible. The best case is, to me, is just as possible. And so this is sort of an opportunity, like we're in this moment now that has us exploring different ways of living. So let's see where I was in here. Coming seek for you. Oh, on a personal level, we're going to take charge of our own freedom and find what we have to offer the greater good. So Saturn is the planet, again, of work. It's very much associated with what we do, what we commit to and dedicate our time and efforts. And if Aquarius has to do with thinking of the big picture and the greater good, people will find themselves questioning, you know, what feels meaningful, what's going to help others, where are my skills best used? I've been already having these kind of conversations, and I imagine a lot of people have, because they just want to help. And you thinking about like the best way to do that using your own skills. So people who are born under the sign of Aquarius may experience the greatest amounts of shifts in personal life lessons under this astrology, because in the coming years, maybe not the coming months, unless you were born at the very beginning of the sign of Aquarius, but over the coming years, Saturn will go kind of by where the sun was when you were born. And that is usually a time where you're called to step up and assert what you're committed to, prioritize, take charge of your time and your power in some way. Also, other signs that can feel this strongly are the other fixed signs. So Aquarius is a fixed sign, as is Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. So, and again, everyone's chart is unique. That's why it's really cool to know your chart, because if you have strong Aquarius in your moon, for example, or your rising sign, you might not always know that unless you have seen and understand your chart. So yes, those sun signs are important, but there's a lot more going on here. We're all kind of a unique blueprint in that way. So that's one of the things on a personal level. This is great. I'm actually getting through a lot more material than I thought I would.